Hi, I'm Trankoalaty. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm talking about Animorphs number 8, The Alien. This is the first book narrated by Axe. The book is 159 pages long and written in 1997, according to the copyright inside. I feel like the year and the month was there in the other books, but this one just has the year. So maybe I actually looked up the publishing information instead of getting it out of the books. But this one was July 1997, according to the internet. The cover shows him morphing into a human, and the inside picture is a school. You can tell because it says principal on the door. You probably can't see that, but I can read. It's probably not going to show up on camera very well, but the image itself looks a little weird to me with like the lighting, especially on the floor and everything. And this is before AI, so somebody did this like on their own, right? Here is him morphing in the corner, the animation of the morph throughout the book. This book also has something inside of it. It has a couple of bookmarks with a little excerpt from a chapter where X was discovering how good food tastes. And the back asks if you've read all the books up to this point. And I have. And if you've been watching my videos, you know enough to know enough. So between the title and the cover and the tagline, I have no idea what this book is going to be about, but I'm excited to hear how Axe thinks and what he can share. By the end, we should become familiar with the unfamiliar. Let's hear more of this otherworldly tale from this foreign extraterrestrial visitor. Sorry, I don't have any more alien puns or word plays here. So the book starts with a little prologue of Axe on the Andalite ship as it's coming out of Z space. You know, where the Z Warriors are from? No, in this book, it's zero space, and it's described as just a field of whiteness in all directions, which I guess? So they come out of this hyperspace, Z space, and they see Earth in the distance, and Axe is only there because his brother, Elfangor, is the prince, and he's so cool and so brave and so respected. Axe feels like he can't live up to that, and there's a captain of the ship who's like old and wise and a hard ass, but actually has a heart of gold and is capable of understanding. And Axe is talking to Elfangor. Now remember, they use thought speech. So why would they not just thought to one person ever? Like, why would you communicate everything globally? But whatever. So Axe is talking to Elfangor, and he's trying to get the captain. He's like, put in a good word. Maybe the captain will let me visit the planet. And as I said, the captain overhears this somehow, and like I said, I just don't understand why it was broadcast that way. So the old captain, he overhears this, and he's like, "Oh, that's what you call me. You got moxie, kid." You know, he's a captain with a heart of gold. Actually, if he's a captain, I should have a voice for him, shouldn't I? You call me that, eh? You got moxie, kid. Anyways, that was my best Captain Barbossa impression. Actually, that wasn't my best. He overhears that and he's like, you got something, kid. I like the cut of your jib. As they're like having this little back and forth, a Yeerk mothership comes out from around Earth in the distance, and they're like, uh-oh, battle time. So the Yeerks deploy a bunch of bug fighters, and the Andalites deploy their fighters. They don't have a name for them. They didn't have a catchy name for them, and I feel like they should have. The Yeerks have bug fighters. Maybe I can brand one for them. How about light fighters? Crescent fighters? Slug fighters? Andalites are going to battle with the Yeerks, and Axe has to go back to the dome while everyone else goes off to fight because he's not a full warrior yet. They're very big on rules and customs and adhering to that. So Axe watches the battle between the bug and the slug fighters, and I just realized that it rhymes, but it also sounds too similar and confusing because I feel like the slug fighters should be what the Yeerks have because they're slugs. But how about buck fighters? Because the Andalites are kind of like deers, right? And the Yeerks are like bugs, like slugs. So we got bug fighters and buck fighters. They deploy all of their buck fighters to go fight the bug fighters, leaving themselves basically defenseless, apparently, because the Visser Blade ship shows up, and the Andalite ship has big cannons, but it is no match for this very maneuverable blade ship. So they detach from the dome, to give themselves some more maneuverability, but it's not enough. The Visser shoots them with a whole bunch of Dracon beams and the ship explodes. Axe is watching from the dome ship and he crashes to Earth and falls to the ocean floor, and he just calls for help in thought speech over and over. And eventually humans come and fill him in on their books. I mean, the story from their perspective. And Axe is now on a mission to avenge his brother. So that was the prologue. The way the Andalites talk about killing slugs, and I put that in quotes, and the vitriol that they have for the Yeerks really is like present in the writing in this section. Like as they're talking about battle and like why they're, trying to fight the Yeerks and stuff like that. It's just really, really negative. And it made me wonder, do the Andalites like consider that they're not just killing the Yeerks, they're killing the hosts, and like, so you're killing 2 for 1 basically, and like assuming you killed them both, and it's like, is that more wrong? Like, if they were just killing the Yeerks, that's pretty bad, but like now they're killing the hosts, so that's like twice as bad? Or do they not consider the hosts worth saving? Like, it's a worthy sacrifice to get rid of these? Like, I don't know. This is all just my questions during the prologue. It's fine. Before Axe and his brother split up, they touched tails. Not like that. They touched the blade ends of their tails together and had like a small little like, soon you'll be brave like me, and I'm so proud of you, little brother. Anyways, I'm about to go definitely off to my death now. Bye. And so, like, I guess it was kind of like a hug and, like, type of thing, right? Like, that kind of a scene. Sorry, that was my best anime voice for Elfangor. The next chapter starts with Axe introducing the world and the cast. This is definitely after the last book, the Megamorphs book, because they reference the Yeerk getting a new Kandrona in a week. So it's been about 3 weeks since the previous book, number 7, but not since the Megamorphs book. Axe says that Tobias is a Nothlit. I assume I'm pronouncing that right, because of the 2-hour time limit that was established in the first book. Axe is trying to learn about the humans immersively while not giving away any Andalite information. He also thinks about something that he could say that would turn the humans against the Andalites if they found out. Maybe the Andalites aren't such great guys after all, even with the killing of the hosts of the Yeerks and stuff aside. So to accomplish the learning, the start of the book is Axe is going to go to the movies, but there's a 2-hour time limit, so that's kind of a problem because you got to get there, you got to see the movies, you got to watch the previews, all the fun stuff. They're going over the plan. Axe is going to morph into human, watch an hour of the movie, leave, go unmorph, and it sounds like a reasonable enough plan. And Rachel wants to keep fighting the Yeerks while they're potentially weak. Jake wants to make sure that they don't burn out or slip up after all these big battles, and Axe is a centrist and he sees both sides. Axe morphs into human, gets dressed, and the next scene is Axe watching the previews with Jake and Marco at the movie. The movie is some Star Trek, and Axe is saying how things he's thinking to himself how all the things on the screen look like actual aliens that he has knowledge of. And Marco gives Axe some popcorn, and Jake is like, Axe, don't freak out, that's food. And predictably, Axe eats all the popcorn, and then he gets bored of the movie and realizes that the floor is littered with little treasures. And it's just empty boxes of candy and popcorn, and he crawls around on the floor eating everything. He describes chocolate in the most unappetizing way as small brown globules. And eventually he tries to take a little girl's M&Ms. And Jake and Marco finally are like, wait, where's Axe? And escort him away while he's shouting globules. And we learn it's kind of difficult to take candy from children, apparently, because Axe did not get any. Well, I guess take is a strong word, because he did ask for it. He knew that he couldn't just take it out of their hands. So I guess Andalites recognize, not to take things from other people. Marco and Jake drag Axe out of the theater. Cassie and Rachel follow at a distance, and Tobias is like, you guys are out of here early. He's flying ahead above. And a controller enters the scene, and his Yeerk is dying. The man's in pain, and he's shouting nonsense about an invasion. The cops and an ambulance arrive to take care of him, and the gang is all excited, like, oh, the Kandrona destruction, it's definitely had an effect. But Axe is upset, and he can't tell them about Ciro's kindness. That's the Andalite law, that he can't give them information. And he mysteriously alludes to the reason that the Andalites have to fight the Yeerks and why they hate them so much. So the next morning, Axe does his warrior ritual that he does every morning, and he contemplates how he's a failure because he's not living up to the oath and defeating his enemies. And I guess that means, like, even though there's only one of him and there's hundreds of thousands of Yeerks alive, he's got to be a failure. Like, he's set up to fail here. Mostly, though, he's still pretty upsetty about not attacking Visser 3 when he could have. He definitely would not have succeeded, but he had the opportunity. He could have gone out as a noble or whatever. Tobias pops in and asks some world-building questions like, how do you eat without a mouth? And Axe responds, I have hooves, don't I? And most of the external talk is about how Axe is going to go to the school for more immersive studying of the humans. Just like Invader Zim here. Axe this whole time is also thinking about if Tobias were an Andalite, maybe him and Axe would have been besties. But since he's a human, an alien, Axe can't be close friends with any of them. They're outsiders. And this is all while Axe and Tobias are running towards the rendezvous point so that Axe could morph and go to school. And I have to wonder at this point, for whatever reason this pops into my head while they're running, does Axe have ticks like the bug? Because he had fleas at one point. Does he groom himself? Does he find ticks on him? Does he not care? I mean, because they live in the wood and stuff, and so do other bugs and such. I don't know. It just grosses me out, and it's just a question that popped into my brain of, like, if they're running through the forest and stuff, he's going to have parasites and stuff, right? Like, anyways, next chapter. Axe is talking about how the humans are strange as he morphs, where Jake and Cassie have met him with some clothing so he can go to school. Tobias is keeping watch as usual. Axe is going to go undercover as Jake's cousin Philip. And I guess back then you could just walk into a school and say you went there. I find Axe interesting here because he keeps playing with his mouth and playing with the words and the sounds that go with him. And the way that he answers questions as well, or the way that he describes things, I for some reason get like heavy autistic coded vibes from him, like the mouth noises. That's just Axe stimming. And the way that he answers or describes things, that's just because he doesn't have the same emotional attachment to the words, or doesn't have the same capability to like pick up sarcasm or the way he's coming across as well. I could be reaching, but it's in like the back or front of my mind, and I'm sure it'll change, but like for now, that's what I'm thinking as he's like speaking and they're like, Axe, you just need to chill. No, none of the mouth stuff today, etc. So Axe talks about how the school is so busy and all the variety of things there. And he talks about how he doesn't understand how like clothing is mandatory, but everyone's very insistent on it. Same. He also has this paragraph here that I totally misread when I first read it, but maybe not. When he's giving descriptions of everyone, he talks about how Rachel and Marco are described as cute. But he can't see that because he's an Andalite. But when he's a human, he realizes that Rachel is attractive and Marco is not. My other human friends tell me that Rachel is beautiful and Marco is cute. As an Andalite, I don't observe either trait. However, when I am in human morph, I begin to see that Rachel actually is very beautiful, but I never see that Marco is cute. And I misread that initially as like, he's an alien. He can't tell if they're attractive or not. The same way that I don't know if a fish is pretty or not because I'm a human. But then, like, if I was a fish, I'd be like, yeah, that's a pretty fish right there. You know, like, maybe that is how it's meant to be read. But, like, the way that I read it initially, I broke that into, like, two separate trains of thought. And I was like, what? Axe learns about general school things like lockers and the bells for class. And the bell frightened him, and he made a bit of a scene, but he calmed down and went with Jake to his class. In that hallway scene, I also imagined Axe, again, as autistic, behaving unusually, full of adrenaline, overwhelmed by all the stimuli around, because he kind of freaked out when the bell rang and stuff. Anyways, they go to class. Jake goes up to the teacher and he's like, hey, teach, this is my cousin Philip, and he's going to follow me around today, okay? And the teacher's like, yeah, sit down. And I'm just like, what? And like, I was surprised, but like, maybe it's a trope or something. Is it? Shortly after they sit down, the teacher starts acting weird and falls to the ground and starts clawing his head and shouting about Yeerks. And I guess this is from the effects of the destruction of the Kandrona. And like, how are the Yeerks going to cover this up? And why would this Yeerk teacher not just like, hey, I'm calling in sick? Even, this is the last day. Like, the Yeerk must know that it doesn't have enough nutrients or whatever the Kandrona is to, like, survive. So why would you go into public? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I have a disconnect here. Like, why not die in private? How inconsiderate. What I really mean is, like, why wouldn't the Yeerk go to, like, a different location to have the quickening not in public? And I know it's not called the quickening, it's called the fugue. I think I'm going to call it the quickening from now on. The Yeerks are part of the Highlander universe, I guess. So Jake goes up to the teacher and he's like, I know what this is. You're going to survive. I've been through this. You're going to be okay. It's only going to last for a little while and that Yeerk's going to die. And like, he's doing this all under his, like, as close as he can to the teacher, right? He can't not try to console the teacher. Axe tries to keep all the other students away from overhearing this by saying, like, it might be dangerous to be near the teacher. And so, like, they kind of keep back. But, like, why would Jake reveal himself about knowing about the Yeerks and stuff? But also, like, even if the teacher was just ill, like, I have no idea how Jake thought this was going to work. Because he reveals himself, to the very least, about knowing about the Yeerks and stuff. And if the teacher does, for some reason, get recontrolled, like, even if that Yeerk dies, and they're like, oh, hey, we got a new Yeerk for you, Teach. Like, he's going to know that what Jake just said, right? Jake and Axe leave because Assistant Principal Chapman, AP Chapman, enters the scene because one of the students ran out and was like, hey, teacher's freaking out on the floor and bleeding and stuff. And so AP Chapman enters the classroom, tells everyone to leave, and that the teacher is just ill. And so Jake and Axe leave last, and the teacher is like, no, he's one of them, pointing to AP Chapman. As they're leaving, they see AP Chapman press a small metal cylinder against the teacher's neck, and that kills him instantly. Jake runs outside and has a bit of like a panic attack and asks Axe if Chapman just killed the teacher because they did the damage to the Yeerks, and now all the controllers that would be free are going to be killed. And Axe is like, yes. He confirms that. And Jake is very upset. Jake seems to be upset that maybe they freed people to death. And Axe says if they got free, they'd be able to warn of the invasion. So the Yeerks are going to tie up those loose ends. And this is what happened to the last person, but only Axe actually saw the metal doohickey in the previous scene with the paramedics and stuff in the movie theater. No one else had seen. Since Jake saw it this time, Axe doesn't feel the need to lie and cover it up. And that kind of actually breaks my like autistic reading of Axe, or confirms it, of like lying is difficult, but like evading the truth. But like when asked directly, I don't know. That's my interpretation of like how Axe treats the Andalites and the Yeerk information here. Axe and Jake have a bit of back and forth, and Jake is worried because his brother is a controller. If his brother starts going through the quickening, his brother's gonna die. And he asks Axe if he knew this would happen, and Axe is like, yes. And Jake is upset. And it's like, what do you mean? He's like, we've seen this before when we fought the Yeerks on other planets. This is the MO. Clean up loose ends. No witnesses. And Jake is super angry, and he's like, Axe, you shouldn't be keeping secrets. You're supposed to be on our side. And it's just like we're pawns, and Axe isn't being very forthcoming with information. And Axe is like, but if you knew, maybe you wouldn't have destroyed the Kandrona. And Jake is like, you really should learn about humans if that's what you think. And I have no idea what that means. What do you mean? I think that Axe might be right. If you knew, if your brother starts to get uncontrolled, if your brother goes through the quickening, he's going to get killed. Are you still going to like sabotage the thing and potentially lead to that? Like, I can see why he might be like, yeah, you probably wouldn't have done it. But like, also, I can see why Jake is mad. Like, Axe should have been more forthcoming with information that he knew. And like, yeah, Axe is acting kind of like superior, like he's an alien. He knows more. He knows best. He doesn't have to share, or, like the school trip is effectively over. School's over, and Axe goes back to the woods. And he's very hurt by what Jake said, and he still thinks that even though the Animorphs are all he has, that he can never be their real friends. Even though he is billions of miles from his closest actual people. So the next day, Marco shows up and he's going to take Axe to the bookstore. Jake and the others are too upset with Axe, and Marco is like going to try to press Axe for information while also giving him a reason to be out. And Marco puts it all really bluntly that like he would be subtle and gather information, but Jake is like, no, we don't have anything to hide. Give him access to everything we have to offer. Show him that we are friends and we trust him. And Axe feels guilty about that, as he should. And they also mentioned the eating thing again, with no mouth and all. And, you know, like, how does Axe eat? But they have to stop at Marco's house because he forgot to grab the money for the books that they were going to buy at the bookstore. So they have to stop at his house before they, like, head over there. Marco tells Axe to be cool because his dad is home. And if he talks to Axe, to be normal and only to answer with yes and no as responses. Marco runs to his room to go grab the change. We don't know where Marco's dad is. Axe sees a laptop on the table and he's like, oh my gosh, how cool is this? It has a physical keyboard. And like Andalites haven't had keyboards for hundreds of years. And then that really made me start to wonder, how the hell would things evolve? Like, I guess it could be the same as like it does here, but like, do they have legacy tech that they can't use because they don't have the ability to like interact with that format? Or like, what about some stuff that doesn't operate on thought speech? You know, like, I guess maybe they know how it all works still. I don't know. So Axe is like looking at the laptop and he's like, this looks like a children's game and it's full of errors. I'm just going to fix this right up. And he starts fiddling with it and like typing some stuff out. And Marco's dad comes in and starts talking to him. And of course, Axe, being literal, only answers with yes or no. And it leads to a whole hilarious exchange where Marco's dad is like, are you Marco's friend? Yes. What's your name? No. Your name is No? Yes. That's a strange name. No. A little back and forth like that. And Marco comes back and he's like, hey, you met my friend? All right, bye. And like, they just leave. As a small side note, this next chapter, they start with journal entries from Axe. Most of the chapters in this book start with journal entries from Axe, usually related to the contents of the chapter or the previous one. And this one talks about how humans invented computers after books, but books are such a great way to transmit information and faster than a computer. But like, what is a screen except for a page that can change into any info that you want to display? I feel like this scene would have played out a little differently today, because like, would they still have taken him to a physical bookstore, or would they have just given him like an ebook reader and like, here you go, all the information right here? And so the next scene is Axe in the forest reading from the World Almanac, all sorts of neat info about humans. He says that humans are learning fast. If they survive, they could be one of the great races of the galaxy, but not as great as Andalites. Narcissistic much? So the others arrive. They'd all been looking for Axe and they're upset. So Marco's dad does programming, and I guess what he was working on was some sort of astronomy related thing. And Axe, playing with the code that was on the screen, did something. So clearly he's given the humans a little bit of a leg up accidentally. But like, even if he did like give them the equations to isolate like a specific planet or something like that, like, would we be able to do anything with that? Maybe that would alert the Yeerks to something. The Andalites did something here. Would that do anything? Would that actually advance things? Or would it just be like, we don't know what this is and it looks like gibberish? Or sure, we can see this one planet, but what does that do for us? Or maybe it would be really, really obvious, right? I think the only thing that I could think is that it would alert the Yeerks and they would go, well, who wrote that code? Go interrogate that guy. Something's up. Andalites must have talked to him, right? And that's basically what the rest of them actually said to Axe. He just basically advanced human tech by like 100 years. And he also thinks maybe he could use one of those radio telescopes to send a message to the Andalites, but he can't leave any of those changes that he made intact because that would be against the law. Basically, he's formulating a plan on the side, and he's not including any of the rest of them in it. He's going to go delete the code, but first try to send a message. I guess backing up your code wasn't as big of a deal in the 90s, but like, I feel like now all of that would have been backed up pretty quickly. Maybe there's a way to like delete it from all the repos or something, but I don't know. Maybe they don't follow best practices. So Axe is running around at night to eat and thinking about how much he misses his family. And even though he accidentally broke the laws, if he went to delete the code, he could undo that and send a message. So it'd be okay, right? And he's thinking about how he misses Andalites and all that, and how his brother had treated him. That's why he wanted to be a warrior, and on and on. And it really made me think two things. First, how are Andalites born? They have weird anatomy, right? Like a tail. I feel like that weaponized tail would be kind of an obstacle. Where do they gestate? Second, the distance and time between things. Like, they're at war with Yeerks, but still able to go back to their home world and visit and stuff like that. Because even at light speed, you'd be going between very large distances. It would take a very long time, right? They sort of allude to that, of like, Axe got to meet his brother way after Axe was born because Elfangor was off to war and stuff like that. But like, that's why I was thinking, like, well, how did Axe get born? Did he come from an egg? But basically, like, would it even be the same world every time you go and come back? Or would that be kind of like in Lightyear? You know, like, so many years have passed every time you did anything. So while he's lost in thought, he's accidentally kind of ran a bit close to Cassie's farm. But it's okay, because Cassie was also out there running as a horse, and she unmorphs, and they talk for a bit, and Axe says he just finished the World Almanac, and he thinks that the Yeerks are after humans because we're pretty smart, and the rate we're advancing, maybe in 50 years, you know, maybe we would be too smart too soon. And so the Yeerks are going to kind of nip us in the bud, because he's like, you went from flying to radioactive bombs in like 50 years, and like, who knows where you'll be soon, right? I like the optimism. So Cassie invites him over for dinner, you know, to give him a more immersive experience and be friendly. And he can just cosplay as Jake for this time. And he doesn't even have to eat much because he just ate. Axe meets Cassie's parents and describes them. And when he gets to Cassie's dad having glasses, this is something I might have mentioned before, but like, I had to wonder, this is a thing that I've wondered, what if you used morphing to just like fix your eyes? Like, you didn't morph far. You just morphed a little bit better, so your eyes were like bird eyes or something, right? And then you didn't unmorph. You just stopped there. You're technically a Nothlet, but you're still mostly you, but with good vision. Or just, how about normal vision, right? It doesn't even have to be bird eyes. You can get stuck halfway, right? Can you be a Nothlet that's just you with some very tiny attribute? Also, how do you know if you're done morphing and you're not going to get stuck as like whatever mix and match of morph you're at? Anyways, Cassie's dad has cooked some chili, and Axe is eating it, and it was spicy. And her dad says he used habanero chilies, the hottest substance known to man. And Axe is like, not as hot as nuclear fusion. I feel like that's an autistic response. Like, so after Axe ate a few bowls of chili, Cassie is like, hey, you should probably chill out on that. And then I had to wonder, what happens to all that food after Axe unmorphs? Does it just vanish? Does he digest it as an Andalite? Does it like stay inside of him? Do the Andalites expel waste the same way as humans? Because they don't get it the same way. They don't get ingest food the same as humans. So many questions. I don't think that the answers are going to be here, but they are questions nonetheless. They eat, they make some small talk, they watch some TV, and then Axe has to leave. So Cassie gives him another book with famous quotes, and they have a little bit of a conversation about family and stuff like that, and Axe talks about missing his home and feeling sad. Axe spends some of the night reading the book and the other part formulating a plan, and he goes to Tobias, and after making Tobias swear to secrecy, he tells him of his plan. He's going to go to the observatory, send a message, destroy the code. So the next day, Tobias and Axe are going to fly to the observatory. After this point, Axe references things from the World Almanac, like random facts, but like, I also have to wonder, like, how outdated are these facts? Are they even like accurate anymore or not? So like, as an example, it's like, did you know that the US imports X amount of clothing yearly, or stuff like that? And it's like, why is that the fact that you chose to add to the book? Why not choose something that's not gonna vary so much, like gravity is related to mass. Something more concrete, I feel. Tobias doesn't know the whole plan, just that Axe needs to like access the computers and the radio telescopes. They fly to the telescope building, the observatory, and Tobias keeps watch. Axe flies inside, finds an empty office, and starts to unmorph. And he decides to stay as an Andalite, even though that's risky, because if he sends a message, he wants the Andalites to see that it's him, and he would have to go through too many morphs to like escape or anything like that if things go awry. So Tobias says everyone in the office, or everyone at this observatory, seems to be in a meeting in another office, but like he's kind of far in and out of thought speed range. And I'm sitting here thinking, this is all a trap. The Yeerks are definitely going to know that this code is not like human made, and so just put a plant in there and like you got yourself like a little honey trap, right? So Axe gets to a terminal, a computer, and he starts reprogramming it to use thought speech to send his message, and then he creates a virus to destroy all trace of everything afterwards. So he successfully opens up a channel to the Andalites, and he got video chat working in the 90s. Interstellar video chat. That's amazing. I also imagine like, I don't think this scene would look any different now. Sure, the computers would be better, but like the end result is still just a video chat. Like, that's pretty cool. Gets a hold of some Andalite and they're like, hey, this is a restricted communication. Who are you? And they have a little back and forth. I'm Axe, etc. They talk. He tells them about the invasion. They're resisting. Elfangor gave some humans the ability to morph. Yeerks are here. When he says that Elfangor gave the humans the ability to morph, higher up gets on the line. Prince Ciro was my first prince hundreds of years ago, and he gave aliens tech, and look how that turned out. And so they have a little bit of exposition about like the Hork-Bajir were our allies, and now they're slaves to the Yeerks, and like they didn't get any access to our tech, so why should the humans type talk. He also gets Axe to take the blame for giving the humans the ability to morph, so that he can keep Elfangor's name intact as like a great hero. And it's like, I don't like that. This higher up orders Axe to resist but not give any tech, and there's going to be some time before the Andalites get there. And like this whole time the Andalites are not coming out looking good to me. Like they're covering things up just to keep appearances. I don't like that. They're hoarding knowledge and stuff. I don't like it. Tobias is like, hey, somebody's coming, and just as that happens, his dad gets on the video chat. Like they were like, wait, we're gonna go get your family. And just as Tobias is like, somebody's coming, that's when his dad shows up, and he's like, oh no, I need to talk to my dad. I can't leave. But his dad, the terminal goes blank, and there is a controller with a Dracon beam pointed at Axe. And Tobias tries to like save Axe and like swoop in and disarm the controller, but to no avail. He still has the weapon, and he's like, no, I don't want to kill you, Mr. Andalite person. I just want to talk. And he like throws the Dracon beam on the ground and kicks it away to prove like, I'm no threat. I just want to talk. He tells Axe and Tobias how he overheard a part of the conversation, so he knows that Axe needs to get revenge against the Visser for killing his brother, customs and all. And he happens to be here to help him get it, because the Visser has been shuttling the important Yeerks back and forth for Kendrona, and the rest of them are dying. And this guy sabotaged one of those shuttles as revenge for the Visser not keeping his bestie Yeerk friend partner alive and letting that Yeerk die. And so he sabotaged one of the shuttles, and that's why the quickening is happening to Yeerks on Earth right now. He got this position to basically be a watchout, because the Andalites are probably going to come to use this telescope. Since he happened to be posted here and his bestie was deemed expendable and basically killed by the Visser because of it, he also wants revenge. Win-win for both of them, right? So this leads me to have a lot of questions about the Yeerks. The way that this Yeerk talks about the other Yeerk that he was besties with, he says she, and that for some reason gives me like a little bit of a focus of like, so there's men and women Yeerks or boy and girl Yeerks or something. The Yeerks are gendered. And also, how does that work when they take on a human of the other gender? Or like, is it completely separate concept of gender from like what we have? They also talk about like the way the Yeerk describes Elfangor. He calls him Beast Elfangor. So like the Yeerks have their own mythology or like way of talking about the Andalites, the same as Andalites have their own way of talking about the Yeerks. So the end result is that he gives Axe a piece of paper and he says, there's a time and a place. That's where Visser 3 is going to be alone so that he can do some eating as an Andalite, because the Andalite body needs sustenance. And he does so with minimal guards for some reason. That again, so the Yeerks do have to sustain the populations that they enslave, but like, how do they do that? I guess maybe, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it makes me think like, yes, we're going to control this section of the like this section that we've controlled. You're farmers. You just keep farming. You're just normal. You're going to do what the humans were already doing. You're going to keep farming. I don't know. It just sounds really silly to me. Of course, Axe is like, this is probably a trap, but it's my duty to avenge my brother. So I have to do it. For some reason, Tobias still has like shirt scraps on his wings in the next scene. And Jake has called a meeting at headquarters. Tobias shows up with shirt scraps from the observatory guy, and everyone is suspicious because Axe and Tobias are like, no, I don't know what's going on. You know, like clearly Axe is hiding some more things and Tobias is also in on it. They all confront Axe and he's like, I can't tell you. I'm not Elfangor. I can't break the rules. And they're all like, law. Sorry, I can't do a good Judge Dredd meme. So they eventually get to the part where Axe can't tell them things because of shame or guilt or whatever, not because they're inferior species. And Jake is like, that's not good enough. If you can't be honest, you can't be part of our group. And Axe is like, I wasn't going to be here much longer anyways. And he just leaves. I had totally forgot to write down for some reason that in the beginning of the book, when Axe was like running around in the forest, he acquired a rattlesnake morph. The snake did strike at him, but it only hit his hoof, and so he did not get poisoned. And he was like, ooh, that might be useful, because the snake attacks very fast. So he acquired a rattlesnake morph. And I think that's what he's planning on attacking the Visser with. You know, just poison him. But like, won't the Visser just morph and be fine? The next morning, Axe is thinking about, today is the day he's gonna die, and it's really defeatist and harsh, but like, I can relate. And Tobias is trying to talk to Axe and, you know, like, let me help you. You don't have to do this alone. But Axe is all like, no, honor and customs and stuff. So Axe has to avenge his brother, even if it's a doomed mission. Axe is like, Tobias, you can't tell the others. And he's like, okay. And, you know, I won't. Axe is still feeling angry and sad and upset that he's like throwing his life away for like such low odds of success. He runs to the area that was given to him to prepare to ambush the Visser when he comes to feed. I just realized that, like, what if the Visser saw Axe as a snake and also was like, ooh, nice snake there. I want that morph. And he tries to acquire it. Would he get that snake morph? Or would he have to, like, would he get Axe? Do you have to, can you acquire an animal from somebody who's morphed? Because, like, you should be identical to a real snake at that point, no? I mean, you are the animal, right? Axe gets to the location. It's a clearing. He morphs into the snake and he waits. It's just like a big clearing. There's a river, not a river. There's a small stream flowing through the middle. The Visser arrives and has his guard. Axe goes over the plan. Strike. Hope that the venom slows him down. Unmorph and finish him. Try to escape. Good plan, great plan. So the Visser comes near. He's like, Axe is like, he's probably going to be thirsty. I'm going to wait by the water. And the Visser does end up going to the water. And Axe strikes and bites him a few times. Visser is obviously like, there's a snake. Find it and kill it. Axe is slithering away and trying to unmorph. But a Hork-Bajir is like right there and about to attack him. And he's only like halfway morphed between a snake and himself. He's not very useful. But luckily, Rachel enters the scene and takes out that Hork-Bajir. And Jake, he's a tiger, and he takes out another one of the guards. And Tobias is in the air giving intel. And Cassie and Marco are somewhere as a gorilla and a tiger, not a tiger, as a gorilla and a wolf taking out the other guard. There's the Visser and 2 guards remaining in the middle of the meadow. And Axe has fully unmorphed. He's angrily talking with Tobias about how you promised you weren't going to tell them. And Tobias is like, well, you said Jake was your prince. And I mean, if he's your prince, he's kind of my prince too. And like, I have to obey what he asks, right? Wink, wink. And like, you know, he ordered me to tell. They're all closing in on the Visser, a tiger, a wolf, a gorilla, a bear. Oh my. Axe tells the Hork-Bajir guards, like, you're all alone. Your Visser's about to die. You can die with him or you can run. And they run. The Visser's not going to forget that. The Visser is staggering from the venom from the rattlesnake. That is when Tobias is like, oh, big problem. I just saw the Yeerk slide out of the Andalite and he went into the water. I can't see him anymore. The Visser got away into the water as a Yeerk. And the Andalite is free. So I guess the Yeerk can survive outside of host. Do they need water to survive? That doesn't seem like it sort of seems implied, but it doesn't seem like it is true. Also, good thing there was no fish in that water to eat him. He looks like a little worm, right? He's a perfectly normal human worm baby. The Andalite, now free of the Yeerk's control, is free. And he says to the cast, this is my name and my rank. He was the 2nd highest rank, like right below Prince. He's like, please just kill me before the Visser's backups arrive and cure the body and then re-control me. Which, if you wanted to overthrow the Visser, wouldn't this be the perfect opportunity for any Yeerks to be like, don't give him a host, or give him like, I don't know, what's an unharmful, give him a little bunny rabbit, or, you know, like, or just don't give him a host at all, keep him in a little tube, I don't know, and then like, boom, you've overthrown the Visser. The Andalite is just like begging, please kill me, I'm too weak from the poison, and I can't kill myself. For some reason, I can't morph. I can't do anything. I'm useless. Help. And they don't kill him. Axe is like, I can't harm another Andalite. And the others aren't like, well, I can. And like, smash. The Andalite says that the Yeerks are stronger than they think. And they've infiltrated the homeworld. And then they all leave. And the Andalite passes out. Why? I understand it's like really cold to like kill him. But like, he's begging to be not enslaved again. And begging to die free. Why wouldn't you? Like, even Rachel doesn't step up and do that. And even Axe, with all his honor talk, is like, I guess, forbidden from harming another Andalite? Unless they're a controller, then it's totally okay? I don't know. Cut to, a couple days later, Axe has them all gather. He tells them of Ciro's kindness. The law that they can't break. As I'd half remembered, half hypothesized, at this point, you might understand. The Andalites gave the Yeerks the tech to travel. And the Yeerks expanded their empire very quickly and took over a whole bunch of planets. Axe is like, I'm taking the blame for Elfangor so that Elfie's name won't be tarnished. And, you know, this is why I can't give you tech or information or anything. And I understand if you hate the Andalites, you know, now that you know the truth. Andalites are the reason that the Yeerks are able to be spacefaring and stuff. I understand if you hate us and like, and you're mad. And they're all like, nah, you were just being nice and it didn't pan out. You don't stop being nice because someone was a jerk once. That's a good lesson. Keep being nice, share. Axe and the gang all agree that they're allies and friends, and Axe will tell them things, regardless of what his people want. But the group also says, we don't want your tech, we just want your trust. Which is like, cool, but like, you could take some of the tech too, right? Axe tells them as much as he can. He actually is like, yeah, and Tobias is my bestie. Even though he's an alien, he's my bestie. They call them Shorms, but like, he's bestie. Their first question, their only question that they really like elaborate on is, how does Axe eat? And he's like, with my hooves. When we run, the hooves crush the grass and absorb the nutrients from it. And that's how the Andalites eat. The final chapter is Axe going back to the telescope and talking to the Yeerk trader, who is big mad that he did not kill the Visser. Axe blackmails him, like, you wouldn't want the Visser to know you're the one who gave up some information, would ya? And he blackmails him into letting him use the computer again, gets the software working to, like, have another video chat with the Andalites, and he says, I'm gonna help the humans. And he disobeys the Andalite laws. The humans are his people now. And he also transmits a message from the... he also relays the message from the Andalite host of Visser 3 about he loves his wife and family and he hopes to be free someday. By the way, we didn't kill the Andalite that was, taken over. Sorry about that. If that Andalite was such a high up, wouldn't he have knowledge that the Visser has now? Like, I know how to make this. Like, if Axe, not even full warrior, has a whole bunch of tech knowledge that he can share, and this Andalite is maybe super, super old, he would have I guess it would be hundreds of years old, but like he would still have some knowledge of like, well, here's how all the stuff works, right? The Andalite on the other end is all upset about Axe going against all the laws, and like he's like, you can't disobey our law. But what are they gonna do? Come to Earth and like collect him and not help against the Yeerks? He's gonna call their bluff. That's the end of the book. Axe deletes the software and is on his merry way. Or presumably Axe runs his virus and deletes all the software, and we're back to where we were. My thoughts. I had some weird questions during this book. I don't know that Axe really elaborated on much. I guess he did give us a little bit of like Andalite history and like stuff like that, but he didn't give us like tons. It left me with a lot of questions about Andalite physiology and things of that nature. It'll be interesting going forward to see what he shares, because he's not supposed to be keeping secrets anymore, right? Overall, a pretty good book, pretty easy to like. First, this one I flew through. It felt actually very short. It was 159 pages, but it just was like really quick, and it was over, and like everything happened in like 3 chapters at the end, and I was like, oh my goodness. Mostly this felt like a whole lot of meh. There wasn't like a huge... This was just Axe is now part of the team more. There wasn't like a huge battle or anything like that, except for they left the Visser alive. I guess they did confirm that they did leave a pretty big blow to the Yeerks with the Kandrona. However, the new Kandrona is coming in a week, so maybe not. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you have anything that you think I missed, or anything you want to say, really. I still enjoy reading the comments. Feel free to subscribe, give me a like, all that fun stuff to make the algorithm think that I make great content and you want to see more of it. Thanks for listening, and see you next time. Bye.